Here we go!
In case of emergency, the exits are here. Anywhere.
Keep your hands and arms inside the carpet.
Name is Hades, Lord of the Dead. Hi, how you doing? We dance, we kiss, we schmooze, we carry on, we go home happy. What do you say? Come on.
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
Welcome, Ohana, to the Disney Guys Uncensored. This is episode 64, recorded on June 8th, 2020. We're your hosts, Drew, Bob, and Jordana. On tonight's episode, we visit some of our favorite resorts on property, Port Orleans, French Quarter, and Riverside. So come, journey with us as we head on down to the fabulous Mardi Gras for a phased dodo and pass a good time. And no BuzzTube this week, no news that we want to really get into, so we're going to lead right off to the topic of the week.
Now, I must say, before we get going with Port Orleans here tonight, I want Andrew to tell a story because he needs to call the Ghostbusters.
Oh boy, you know it's odd, Bob. So the last 7 nights going on in my house, you know, I swear to God, I hear the toilet in my bedroom, you know, the bathroom off my bedroom, flush. Like 4 of the last 7 nights. You know, a couple of the times my dog started going berserk and barking and running to the bathroom. I jumped up. First time I thought it was like one of my kids, but I was like, there's nobody there. And, you know, the wife just took care less. She's sleeping. So I don't know what's going on. There may be a ghost using my facilities in the middle of the night. I don't know, Bob.
You gotta go and you gotta go. Even in the afterlife.
There used to be the Ghost Hunters. They used to have a show. They used to be in Rhode Island, too.
Yeah, Taps.
Taps. They used to have a road.
That's it.
Yes.
So you're saying I need to call Taps?
Yes.
You do. I actually used to work with a guy that worked with Taps, so I can give you his contact information offline. Believe, hand to God,
great.
true story.
And we need to know a follow-up of how this goes.
You know a guy who knows a guy who knows a ghost hunter. Thanks, Bob.
That's a Rhode Island thing.
Glad I could help. Anyway, Port Orleans, personally, if you want to separate the 2 resorts or you want to make them one, any way you slice it, it is my favorite combined resort on property, I guess would be the word. We're going to treat it like 2 distinct resorts tonight. Andrew's going to cover French Quarter. I'm going to cover Riverside. They do share a lot of facilities, so some of the stuff Andrew will probably skip on a little bit, but I'll pick it up in the Riverside portion because almost everything does kind of operate out of Riverside as opposed to French Quarter, but 2 beautiful resorts and kind of a different take on resorts this time. Andrew will tell you guys about French Quarter. I'll tell you about Riverside. Jordana has never stayed at either one, so she will tell us based on our research and work we put forth today. She will tell us a little bit about where she preferred to stay based on our information, and then hang tight for Random House of Mouse after that, where she's going to talk about amphibicars because that's what we do here. Originally proposed as a new development near the Empress Lily Steamboat Restaurant in Lake Buena Vista shopping village area, that's obviously now Paddlefish, and it is Disney Springs. The expansion was to include an intricately themed resort hotel complex designed to evoke the laid-back feel of the city of New Orleans, very reminiscent of New Orleans Square in Disneyland. For whatever reason, the concept never made it off the drawing board. Epcot costs, low attendance figures once Epcot opened. Not that that's the only thing that happened. There was some, hostile takeover bids of the company at that time. This is pre-Eisner. This is the early 80s. So this is pre-Michael Eisner taking over with Frank Wells. In the world of Imagineering, however, though, no good idea ever goes to die. It doesn't really ever go away. It just kind of gets put in the vault, as it were. And the concept did actually reappear more as an Atlantic City feel in the mid-90s as Disney's Boardwalk Resort, which featured the 2 levels that they were going to talk about. But like we said, as part of a massive expansion plans brought on by Michael Eisner in October of 1988, Walt Disney World opened its first, more affordably priced resort hotel, the 2,000-plus room Caribbean Beach Resort. We've talked about that one at length in an episode a little while back. A great resort, huge resort. But spurred on by that success, the old New Orleans themed resort concept was resurrected from the vaults, but instead of it being located directly within the rapidly expanding Disney Village marketplace at the time, it was actually relocated to create a brand new themed area to be accessed via a new waterway. And that brings us to May 17th of 1991. Port Orleans Resort first opened its doors to the public. Originally, it featured just 432 guest rooms in 3 main buildings. The room count was soon increased to 1,008 as construction in the remaining 4 buildings was completed. This new Port Orleans Resort was linked back to the existing marketplace by the Sassagoula River, which was a completely man-made 2.5-mile waterway named after the Native American word for the Mississippi. A new Disney Vacation Club resort, now known as Old Key West, was located along the tributary branch of the same waterway. Further down or up the river, depending on where you are, Disney's Dixie Landings Resort opened to the public on my birthday in 1992, February 2nd. I turned 8. In fact, Andrew, fun fact, we were there when this hotel first opened. We didn't stay there. I think we stayed at the Days Inn on International Drive on that trip. But we did. It featured the rustic-style Alligator Bayou Lodge buildings, and shortly after that, Phase 2 of this second resort opened with the more elegant sophistication of the Magnolia Bend buildings, bringing the total number of guest rooms to 2,048, making
Dixie Landed was that was a big resort for our family in general, right? I mean,
so we stayed there quite a bit. I want to say our first stay there was in 1997 for the 25th anniversary. I think was if my dates are right on there. I think that was the first time we ever stayed there.
Am I wrong to say, I know the mascot of Dixie Landing was the alligator, right? Was it the same one as Blizzard Beach?
No, so believe it or not, Dixie Landings at first was one of the few places you could find Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox and Brer Bear outside of Splash Mountain. That was actually the first. I actually had a mug from that first trip, and they were on the mug. It was very. I don't want to say it was controversial, because they do end up changing the name a few years later to, Port Orleans Riverside, and certainly we wouldn't want to jump to conclusions or assumptions here, but ultimately, they do end up having the gator, and now it's actually the steamship logo, which is beautiful, really. I do like the steamship theme. There's actually a really great backstory about Port Orleans that we were going to do in Random House of Mouse this week, and unfortunately...
What happened there, Bob?
Unfortunately, when I sat down and recorded it, it was 47 minutes long. So if anyone wants to hear it, we have the audio file. Maybe we'll post it to the Patreon page, or maybe if anyone wants to hear it, we'll post it at a later date as a little fun thing in the summer.
Even YouTube, we can always do a YouTube post.
Yeah, we could do a YouTube thing with some pictures and stuff. Really cool, though. Really cool backstory that it was really the first immersive hotel experience Disney ever did, although you'd be hard-pressed to figure out the story unless we told it to you, or you'd know the story already. So despite these resorts kind of operating independently of one another, they did share a management team for the first 10 or 12 years that they were open. And then obviously in April of 2001, they merged to form the one large resort with the 2 sections, Dixie Landings becoming Port Orleans Riverside and Port Orleans becoming Port Orleans French Quarter. Really, it's subtle. It doesn't really do much to the operational capacity. It does actually make it the biggest hotel on Disney property room count-wise at the time, and now it's up to Oh yeah, over 3,000 rooms, and the combined resort now has 325 acres of land. I mean, it is the largest in Walt Disney World, but there is a charm to it, and I think Andrew's going to get into the charm, certainly of French Quarter. It's a little village, it's beautiful, and I will kind of sell you on the idea of how big Riverside is. It doesn't feel that big when you're there. So one other quick thing I want to get out of the way with the background is there's a lot that goes into making a resort this themed, and the music of Port Orleans really stands out if you're into that type of thing. It's kind of an evocative mix of Dixieland jazz and blues type stuff. There are a couple albums we wanted to kind of mention specifically. New Orleans Volume 1, which is where most of the music you'll hear tonight that Andrew has put in here. That album is by the Preservation Hall Jazz Band, Lionel Hampton's Greatest Hits. And then, as we get into it, the Sasagula Water Taxi background music, which actually does include some music from the bus terminals and the bus rides as well. You'll hear Please Baby by Reverend Gary Davis. You will hear Saturday Night Function by the Monty Sunshine Jazz Band. You will hear Louis Armstrong's great version of Zippity Doo-Dah, and Dewdrop by Etta Baker. So really some heavy hitters in the jazz community in the pool area, the lobby area. It's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to tonight. I know, Jordana, you have a lot to digest in a short amount of time, having never stayed here. So we're going to get Andrew going right into French Quarter, man.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bob, for the great background there. And like Bob said, just to reiterate what he's saying, they act as one, Port Orleans, but they're really two separate resorts. And if I had to just high level describe the two off the bat, I'm going to just say, you definitely have French Quarter, which to me is more of that Mardi Gras, fun, colorful, kind of, wrought iron feel. And Riverside is definitely that more Louisiana kind of, I don't want to say upscale, Bob, but definitely the more architecturally conceived,
again, to know the backstory, knowing like I do, so the French Quarter is in fact designed to be very French, which obviously speaks for itself. New Orleans is a very French city in and of itself, but French Quarter is designed that way. And in the backstory, what happens is France technically owns the land that we're on here in the storyline, and they end up losing a war to Spain. And as part of the settlement with Spain, they cede this. So when you combine that with the architectural styles, there's a lot of Southern plantation style homes and rooms in the Magnolia Bend area of Riverside, but that also there's a lot of Spanish architectural design and lesser French, more of a Spanish Franco mix, as opposed to just the outwardly French, which I think is what you're saying about French Quarter being a much more derivative of a French architecture, not archaeology. I was going to say archaeology for some reason.
We're not digging up dinosaurs. But,
no, we're not digging up dinosaurs, but yeah.
Absolutely. And like I said, the way we're doing this tonight, right, is French Quarter is actually, if not the favorite resort for me, and it's funny because Riverside is probably Bob's favorite resort, and Jordana hasn't stayed at either one yet, but she's booked a lot of vacations, she's visited them, so she's going to kind of be our middleman here tonight. She's going to maybe ask some questions throughout the night, and kind of at the end, we're going to do, not a debate, but at the end, we'll just kind of talk about it, and Jordana can kind of give her feel and then see which one she likes better. Right, Jordana? Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm already taking notes. I am ready for that.
All right, awesome. So here we go. Let's start off with Port Orleans French Quarter. So here we go, guys. For an overview, it is a moderate resort hotel, and again, I'm going to set the stage with it's a Mardi Gras, jazz, rich Port Orleans culture-themed resort. You have the cobblestone streets. You have gas lamps that line those streets. You have wrought iron balconies everywhere you look. You have the Port Orleans let's say, trees such as like the pear trees, oaks, the creep, the myrtles, the magnolia blooms, all mixed in with this weird Central Florida type palm trees and tropical trees, which kind of work for some reason. You would think it doesn't, but it works. It's really cool. Like I said, the wrought iron fences are lined in the cobblestone. It feels like you're actually there. With those trees, people love it also because in the Florida heat, it creates a ton of shade. So when you're walking around this resort, you're not boiling hot or getting a sweat when you're walking to buildings or to the bus stop or anything like that. It also has tons of unique architecture and design throughout the buildings and hotel, resort, or the rooms rather. Like I said, a lot of the wrought iron, kind of greenish and blackish type railings. All the balconies they do really cool is, we talked about the Caribbean beach back a while ago with like, really the different colors and pales. So they actually mix in a little bit of the pale type paint and stucco and stuff like that. And what they'll do is every like 3 or so rooms, it's almost like they created a new building. So they'll change the color, they'll change the railings, and it's continuous. But they do a fabulous job of breaking up just that building, lawn building. So it's really well done. And then, of course, like I said, this is all sitting within amazing grounds of gardens. So you really have all of these amazing gardens, and Bob's going to go into this too, I'm sure, that have, these really stone and iron fountains within them. And then also, as Bob mentions, this is all located right on the Sassagoula River, which is amazing river as well, which we'll get into a little bit more when we get into the transportation part.
Now,
so that's
quick question.
Yeah.
All like the gardens and everything, does it give it more of like a humid, like hot Florida feel? I know you said that it's like shady, but like, you know how sometimes like in Florida, if you're near too much, you know what I mean? If you're near.
Yeah, I think it doesn't, Jordan. It works because of these, like I said, you mix in these trees that almost don't belong with and it just works. And it's covered in shade. And I think it also, since you have like this cobblestone street, it kind of, I hate to say reflects, because it's not going to reflect the sunlight or the heat, but It's kind of bouncing it off a little bit more than if you just had, concrete or asphalt. It definitely reflects it a little bit more than that.
So I would say that's a concern, though. I would say that stay out of the Alligator Bayou, because that does seem a little bit more humid than the rest of the entire resort for whatever reason. And it's more wooded. It is. It's more pine, some big banyan trees and stuff like that. But it does seem a little more humid in the back of where the Alligator Bayou is later on. I will say that. But Andrew's right. At French Quarter, it's not like that at all. It is. I mean, I think it's the better looking of the two resorts. Mm-hmm. Again, I really do. I love the feel of it, and I love the size of it too, Jordan. I know you're not there yet. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but it's such a compact area, and it's so easy to navigate, like you're saying, and you can appreciate the details on the buildings because it's intimate. It's an intimate resort. So you can appreciate the design aesthetics on the promenades and on the random streets. You really can.
You can, and I think you just notice it more because everything is so small. And speaking of the size, this is the #1 smallest size resort on Walt Disney World property. So if that's something that is catering to you guys, we talked about Caribbean Beach in the past, which is one of the largest resorts where you have to take buses. You could legit be, a small walk and you could see the entire resort, which is fabulous. So the good part about that is there's not really a bad room location on the property, and we'll get into that a little bit when I get over to accommodations. So let's move on over to the main building, the lobby, which is known as the Port Orleans Mint building. And let me tell you, if this is not one of the favorite entrances on Walt Disney World property, well, I don't know what to tell you. As soon as you walk in, you have your lawn path, you got your nice awning and covering. As soon as you walk up to this building, all you see is this, really emerald colored green, again, I hate to say the cast ironish structure, and huge glass wall. So you walk in, it makes you feel like you're outside, because the other side of this room, which is probably only 50 feet away, is the same thing. Huge glass wall, 50 feet high, all, again, green steel framing. And then on each side to the left or right are huge brick walls. So it makes you feel like you're in this courtyard almost, in between two old brick buildings. It's awesome. And what do you have? You have a huge fountain right in front of you. And Bub's going to back me up on this one 100%. I know he will. But every single time throughout the entire resort, you have cast members handing your kids these colorful little plastic Mardi Gras coins. And the kids love them. And you can throw them in that fountain all day long. And it sounds silly, but it lights the kids' eyes up. And it's just something to do every time you walk to the bus, you walk to the food court, you stop and you throw some coins in the fountain. And it adds that extra love of caring for the Disney resort. So
I mean, I would say, spoiler alert, that's not by accident. That also ties into the backstory with you being in the Mint building and the way that they produced coins and produced currency back in the 1700s in Port Orleans in the real fake place. And I'm going to try to keep tying some things back to those stories. But again, this is a brilliant little thing that they do. It's such a throwaway token that they could stop tomorrow and maybe 7 out of 10 guests probably don't even notice it.
Yep.
But it's something that I know when we went there, Andrew, that was with the Halloween trip I think we took a couple of years ago.
Yep.
I mean, our kids would. I mean, every time the old, I forget his name for the life of me. And if you've been to French Quarter, you know the guy we're talking about. All done up to the nines, the big hat, giving coins away, smiling, the happiest guy you'll ever meet. Really, it's a beautiful entryway in a quote unquote moderate resort. I will say both of these resorts, Riverside and French Quarter, are beautifully detailed. Just their lobbies in general are beautiful. And you're right, that big atrium feel, and it feels like you're outside. It's a brilliant design. It really is.
Absolutely. So you're in this centralized little atrium, like Bub says. So if you go to your right-hand side, you're going to go through some entryways through this brick wall, and that is your large check-in area. I don't want to say it's anything too fancy. I don't want to say it's underwhelming. It's like it does its job, right? It's like you're in the inside of a Louisiana type, little state building or something.
It is designed. Okay. It is designed to look like you are going to a mint teller to deposit coin. That is what the design is. It's again goes back to the story that 47 minutes. If you want to hear it, let us know.
So anyways, in there you have your check-in, your bell service, things like that. And then also in there is your entrance to the Jackson Square, which is essentially the gift shop, which we'll talk about a little bit later. If you follow me backtracking now to that main atrium, central lobby area, if you go, again, straight, it's trying to bring you into your courtyard outside that trying to bring you to the resort. So let's rewind here for a second. If you then stay in that atrium and go left, that's where you're going to get a lot of your dine-in, your dine-in availability at that resort, right? You have some facilities and restrooms nearby. You have something that we call the Scat Cat Club, Lounge and Cafe, and then your food court. So we'll get to those in a minute as well. So as soon as you walk into this resort, you get this feeling of a huge welcoming and an overwhelming and just a sensational feeling that like, wow, this is kind of cool and I feel very welcomed here. And there's no overbearing or overwhelming, like what do I do or where do I go or what is there to see? It's pretty straightforward, which I really like. So again, if you were to go outside of that main entry, there's another courtyard on the other side, picnic tables, chairs, all that 9 yards. And then when you keep going straight, the beauty of what I like about this resort is because I hate to say that, a grid type system, but I guess this resort is pretty much grid-like, where if you just keep going straight, you're going to run into your main stuff like the playgrounds and the pool and your outside pool bar. And then off to the left and right are kind of that grid-like accommodations. And let's talk a little bit about these accommodations. So in 2018 and 2019, all of the rooms went through a major refurbishment. So that's the beauty of this. You're getting a fairly new room if you go to this resort currently. It is small. There's only 1,008 rooms. And there's 7 total buildings, which each building number has, is made up of 3 smaller buildings. They do that in almost all the properties. And each one is 3 stories with centralized elevator. The French Quarter offers 4 types of room, which is a standard room, a pool view, a river view, and a garden view, which is, but they also offer a 5th type called the king room, which is for corner rooms only. So there's like 50 something of them in the entire resort. And it's just a little bit larger. It's not really a suite, but I think you pay a little bit more. There's only a king size bed, and it's just a little bit more space since it's that corner room.
Now, go ahead. Sorry, if you stay at because I know that the resort's smaller. So if you're staying at a standard room, is it not that bad? Like if you're staying at a standard room at, let's say, Caribbean or Pop Century, where you're kind of way out in the boonies, is it a little bit better for a standard room? I don't want to say better.
So here's the funny thing. There's no such thing as a preferred room at French Quarter. I'm 99% sure. Don't 100% quote me on that, but I'm pretty confident. There's no such thing as preferred room. What you do choose is you do choose between, like I said, a garden view, a pool room, and what's the other one? A river view, right? So it really depends. I personally recommend, don't get me wrong, the river view is beautiful. The pool room is nice. I personally think you got to go for the garden view. And here's the secret. You want to say, I want a garden view, but I prefer to be in buildings 3 or 4 if I have the option. And the reason I say that, it puts you at the front of the resort. It puts you at the middle of the resort. If you don't really care, I mean, if you want the river view, that's nice. That's not a bad one either. But the garden view is almost like saying you want a preferred room.
Okay.
So if you say garden room, buildings 3 or 4, that's going to put you the closest you possibly can to the front of the resort, which is near the food court and main building. When Bub and I stayed there, I think we stayed the first building closest to the food court. I think 4 rooms in, Bub. It was, you could kick a soccer ball to it.
Yeah, that sounds right.
We lucked out. It was very, very close. But again, there's no really bad locations here. There really, really isn't. And the rooms are standard. Nothing crazy or special about them. All right, let's move on over to the next topic here, dining and shopping. I'm going to be blunt here. Dining and shopping is a bit lackluster at French Quarter. I will say that I believe, Bob or Jana, correct me if I'm wrong, this might be the only moderate resort that does not have a sit-down restaurant.
Yes.
Yes.
But what they do have...
But by definition, technically, they just assume you walk over to Boat Rides Dining Hall at Riverside, which isn't a short walk, but...
maybe a mile, less than a mile.
Mile plus, give or take.
Now, the other thing, we'll get into transportation in a minute, but I don't think there's any, bus tram that you could take either.
No, you could take the boat, depending on which way the boat's going.
Well, that's true, yeah, which way it's going. Actually, I don't know if you could, Bob, because I think the boat goes to Riverside first, doesn't it? And then it makes its way back out towards Disney
Only
Springs?
if they're coming back from the Springs, they will occasionally drop off at French Quarter first. So you might be able to sneak on. But it's
not worth the risk.
It's 50-50. I wouldn't take that chance.
But what they do have is some cool things. They have Scat Cats Club, which is both a lounge and a cafe. So in October 2019, so really not too long ago, they reopened as a newly reimagined 2-location venue. So it used to just be this kind of nighttime-ish club with some jazz music and maybe a bite to eat. But they kind of split, and they went 2 ways. They went into a bar/lounge that actually took the place of what used to be a family sit-down restaurant called Bon Familia. Is that how you pronounce it?
Bon Families, yeah, from Aristocats, yep.
Yep. So it used to be a sit-down service, table service restaurant. So it's no longer there. They converted that more into a nice, big, spacious lounge, which I'll get to in a second. And then what they really did, which I thought was kind of cool, they opened up a new cafe that had, coffees and beignets and some other stuff we'll get to in a second as well. But let's talk about the lounge for a minute, because the lounge is it's pretty nifty. The thing is, though, I don't foresee people coming here to go strictly to the lounge. I mean, I could be wrong. If you want some nice jazz music and stuff, this might be the place to go. But it is a New Orleans style lounge with jazz music. It opens at 4 p.m. Every night, and they feature jazz music. But here's a little throwback. I know you love the music stuff, right? So initially, a 4 or 5 piece cover band with a singer used to play here 5 nights a week. Yep. But they recently have been experimenting with a duo on select evenings. And as early as 2020, you can experience a jazz quartet called the Big Easy Swag, playing at 7:30 p.m. Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. But here's the thing that you might like, Bob. Did you know 2 gentlemen by the names of Jason Thomas and Billy Varnes were 2 members of the fabulous Off-Kilter rock band, which used to perform at Epcot's Canada Pavilion. So they used to come here and perform. But unfortunately, I think when a lot of the cuts started happening with Streetmosphere and a lot of other small cuts, they ended up cutting these poor guys. And their journey came to an end in September of 2019. And then now they get kind of replaced with the Big Easy Swag. So it's definitely a fun night. It's something that definitely I could see you kind of wander over to if you're at the hotel kind of late at night. Dan, Bob, would you or Jordana, would you guys see yourself with all of the options, right? You have over the Polynesian Lounge. You got all these stuff at Disney Springs. You got jelly rolls over the boardwalk. Would you see your guys coming here out of all of your options on Disney property?
I think the problem becomes would I go out of my way to go here? And I feel bad saying I wouldn't. I think ultimately if I was staying there, it's a fantastic little place.
Correct.
If you were staying there and then you like left the parks, family is back in the room, go, have a coffee or whatever and a beignet, then I could see myself hanging out there. However, I don't think I would take, a night out of, I don't know, wherever I am and go specifically there to hang out.
100%.
Now, if you ask me about the River Roost Lounge over at Riverside, I might be inclined to go the other way because of Yeehaw Bob, but ultimately, for this one, and this is the problem, is I've actually spoke to Megan quite a few times about going to like a jazz club. Like you see them in movies, it's so romanticized. I'd love to just go to a jazz club. No, I mean, and just listen to, Miles Davis or something, just think it would be, I think it, is something that I'd be interested in doing. I just don't know that I would do it unless I was staying here, which, it is what it is.
And that's what I'm trying to get at. I think it's a cool little thing, but also for the smallest resort on property, it seems odd for me to have like a lounge like this where a lot of the moderate resorts don't. You look at Caribbean Beach and it's like, you have Sebastian's for dinner, but besides that, what do? This would be perfect for a place like Caribbean because it's such a big, obviously not jazz themed, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But anyways, besides that, they actually have some really delicious food along with some specialty cocktails. Things like brisket sliders, chicken and waffles, mac and cheese, crawfish, that rich New Orleans and Louisiana flavor. So some of the specialty cocktails they even have is imported type of draft beers. They have tons of whiskey and rum options that they also import in. So definitely some good options for food and beverages. But can you get those at a lot of other places is probably what it comes down to.
Right. But as a hotel bar, if this is what you're going to do, you could do worse than this if you were staying here. You could do worse.
100%. I mean, I agree, and I think Jordana, both and I have had nights at the Caribbean Beach pool bar and hung out and had some beers and watched TV. It's fun. It's great atmosphere. But if you're telling me I have to do the same thing and listen to live music, I'm going to pick the live music.
Even a little jazz, I'm telling you. I think you guys have a great time. That could be fun.
Now, do you think you prefer it as it was before, or do you think you prefer it with the renovations that were done in 2019?
That's a tough question, Jordan. I mean, I love the idea of the lounge. I truly, truly do. I just don't. And the same thing with the restaurant. I don't know how many people were coming to French Quarter to eat there for a sit-down meal. I mean, I think Bub and I have talked about this a million times offline. Why they didn't shut down the table service, why didn't they just shut down Stat Cat's Lounge and open Tiana's place is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it's a built-in thing, and you would draw people to that restaurant.
Right.
I mean, that's a
the thing.
legit. You could even do a character meal, right? Dr. Facilier in there. You could have Tiana in there. I mean,
you keep it simple. It could really just be Tiana and Naveen. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, they're easy.
Tiana does meet at the Magic Kingdom meet and greet there with the princesses. But other than that, this is built in for that character. It's weird to me that they haven't done it.
You're telling me if you didn't have Dr. Facilier, you wouldn't go out of your way to go there.
I would go to meet Tiana and Naveen. I have stated on this podcast numerous times that Tiana is my favorite princess to meet in a meet and greet.
Yeah,
I agree with it as well.
All right, but I think the biggest huge addition to this, Jordan, was the cafe portion that they added, because this wasn't really there before. So it's kind of located just outside of the lounge, and it's open from 6 a.m. to midnight, which is great because you can get your coffee and all your specialty coffee drinks and tasty treats along the way. So they have specialty made Mickey-shaped beignets where they actually offer seasonal and festival ones throughout the year as well. So beignets are kind of their big, which I never really had. I mean, they're kind of like a doughboy-ish. So they have like filling in the middle of them, right?
What's that, a beignet?
Yeah.
Oh, they're delicious. They're just little,
Yeah.
I think they're doughboys, right? Pretty much.
They're like doughboys. They're delicious.
Yeah. So yeah, they have tons of favorite little things there.
Little powdered sugar. It's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. But they have other little cafe type items. They have like I said, the specialty coffee drinks with like Bailey's or a rum chata or all those type of things. So it's definitely a cool little place to just pitch something up. The other thing they have there is the Sesasagula Floatworks and Food Factory. Another way to say the food court. Now, I will say, Bob, I've stayed at a lot of resorts. For whatever oddball reason, this has got to be the most diverse and delicious food I've had at any food court I've stayed at on property.
So I will tell you that both of the food courts that we're going to talk about tonight have spectacular specials, and you're going to see it at the Southern-inspired food that you have here with the jambalaya and the gumbo.
Yep.
I not things I'm eating, but people I've gone with have said it's great. I will tell you the food courts at both of these resorts are outstanding.
They are. They're better than they deserve to be for whatever reason.
And I will tell you this one, if I remember correctly when we went, it's very tight, though. It's very tight, the seating area.
So the food court itself is odd. It is small, and I think that the soda fountains take up probably 1/3 of the entire place. They're massive. But it is a Mardi Gras inspired food court, which is, to me, honestly, very lackluster because the ceiling is exposed,
It's like a warehouse, though. I mean, it's all in the design.
But that's the story. It was an old converted warehouse that's supposed to hold the festival parade props.
Mm-hmm.
However, it just seems odd to me because it's like they just hang stuff from the ceiling. So you see like a Mardi Gras huge face mask, like the size of a car, hanging. You see oversized Mardi Gras beads hanging. It seems it's weird. It doesn't really look great. However, the food is great. And like Bob said, they have Southern-inspired food such as, fried chicken and waffles, barbecue-type food, rice bowls, gumbo, jambalaya. And they also they take advantage of the play-on-name food, right? Like the voodoo chicken sandwich and the Bayou lasagna. But they also have very good, just standard American-type food for you. Like I said, burgers and hot dogs, which actually are very good. The pizza was delicious. They have just all different types of pasta dishes. So for whatever reason, I think we talked about it, and I keep bringing it back to Caribbean Beach, but it's the last resort episode that we did. I hated that food court. I didn't want to eat there ever.
I was not impressed with that food court either, and that's like one of the things that we say, like, I don't think, it's a one and done kind of deal. I love that resort, but the food court, it was definitely
which is a shame because the pool is phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's the food court. It's actually probably one of my favorite food courts. The next thing I want to talk about is the Mardi Gras, which is just your typical outdoor pool bar. Sandwiches, salads, pretzels, specialty frozen drinks.
It might be the best name for a poolside bar they've ever come up with.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
I love that.
They also do the on-site resort delivery pizza, which a lot of places, almost all of them, probably do it
If
now.
I may, and I've noticed this, when I get the pizza in the food court, it is exponentially better than the one delivered to my room 2 hours later.
Which you think would be the same thing.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very odd. I don't get it. But I've never had good room service pizza at Disney. But when I get it in the food court by the slice, it's very good. It's odd to me. I don't understand it.
But see,
I don't get it.
The beauty is, Bob, when you stay at French Quarter, you would never ever get resort delivery pizza.
No,
because it's
why would
literally
you?
it's worst case a 3 to 4 minute walk.
Yeah.
And now if you're at the Caribbean Beach, I get it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're at some of the far out places of Riverside, it's a poke too, so I can understand. Yeah.
It might be cold by the time you get back.
Yes.
All right, so the next thing here is the Jackson Square Gifts and Desires.
Mm-hmm.
And let me say, the desires are a little short. There's nothing special about the gift shop at French Quarter. I will say they started adding back some of that Port Orleans country flair where you could buy, the logo type memorabilia. However, there's really nothing special. It's really not that big, and I'm sure bumping into it. The Riverside gift shop is where you want to be. But of course,
general store. But I will tell you, I'm going to disagree with you on Jackson Square Gifts. I actually really like the simplicity of it. And again, I think going back to knowing what Jackson Square Gifts and Desires or the thought process on how this area of the resort was designed or the story they were trying to tell, I think it's better than you give it credit for. I will tell you the merchandise selection isn't great. I will say that. Yeah. But in terms of the design of it, there's very specific design choices there, and I actually like them. And the Port Orleans themed merchandise, like I said, I can't stress enough of how big of a fan I am of that the steamboat logo that they have now for the two resorts. And if you check us out on YouTube, you'll see it. It's front and center on the screen capture for this week's episode. It's a cool logo. I really do like it. So
absolutely.
Now, the theming for the shop, I guess. How would you compare it versus my favorite gift shop is Everything Pop at Pop Century. Like that theming is just so fun and vibrant. And
I'd say there's not much theme in here.
So the problem is unless you know the story of Port Orleans, you're going to miss the theming of Jackson Square Gifts and Desires. Yeah. So basically this was the costume shop for the theater that used to be on the other side of the resort, and Andrew's concerns about the warehouse was the prop warehouse for the theater. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole story to the entirety of the resort that's really a beautiful story, but at the end of the day, in the interest of brevity, I don't know that I can give you every detail of it tonight, but right. It is, if you know the story, it actually fits. And I will tell you, until I knew the story, I was the same as Andrew. I was unimpressed. It wasn't great. There's very minimalistic design to it. Doesn't seem to be much. But it's that next level of design that you have to look at.
It is, Bob, and I don't want to get off topic here, but Disney does a phenomenal job at creating these bad stories. Mm-hmm. I feel like
Land.
That's exactly where I'm going. I feel like sometimes they fail at execution of it. Because think about all the time and effort and somebody put into that, but where's that story being told? And how is it? It's almost like
on this podcast, if you people want it, we can give it to you. But,
oh, boy. Well,
so actually, Andrew, it's funny. It is funny you asked that because they used to give you periodicals like newspapers, 4 or 5 page pamphlets when the resorts first opened that told the story of the resort, that told the story that we told in 47 minutes that we're probably not going to release. But ultimately, they did kind of tell you the story. You had to get every one of them. There was 8 or 9 issues, so you had to kind of mix and match the best you could. But they used to give you that 4 or 5 page, the Sassagoula Sentinel and the Sassagoula Times, I believe, are the 2 names of the papers that they were in. And they were given at each resort that explained kind of the backstories we're giving you as we go along tonight.
All right, very cool. All right, so that's the gift shop and all the food. There's plenty of stuff of options. So let's move on over to transportation. And I'll tell you what, folks, there's not much to say about it, but there's one thing that's very important. So listen closely. French Quarter has only one bus stop. Yeah. That's right, folks. There's no going between stop to stop. That's it. One bus stop.
Mhm.
Everybody, it's phenomenal. It's super easy. It's no confusion. You go there and you just wait for your bus. You can't beat it. Now, they do offer the water taxi, which I'm not getting into because Bob's going to give you the whole backstory on it. But
that's because Andrew hates water rides or boat rides. So.
Short and simple story. You could get access down to Disney Springs, which I will say, hate to admit this, a nice boat ride in the evening with all the lights everywhere. You're going through, almost feels like the bayou. It's an enjoyable boat ride.
Nice trip.
Sometimes
it's about 22 minutes. If you get there in the middle of the afternoon, though, you'll end up like Andrew and get sunburn on half of you while you're sitting on the edge of the boat.
Correct, and that will drop you off over on the marketplace side of Disney Springs. Now, you can technically get to some of the other resorts through here. I don't know if there's direct routes that go there or not. You'd have to maybe find out.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it a little bit, but basically you'd have to take the boat to right behind Rainforest Cafe, and then you can get boats to the different resorts if you want. You can go to Saratoga because that's where Saratoga Springs is, but to go to Old Key West or the Treehouse Village, you'd have to get one of the specific boats that are going to those resorts that are further down the waterway. So,
all right, thanks, Bob. And then let me finish off French Quarters with recreation. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Beignet Fun Run, because who doesn't love a fun run? Sunday Run Day is a quick dash around French Quarter. It's a 1.5 mile course. At the end of it, you receive a little finisher's medallion and a tasty beignet for a little, appetizer or post-appetizer, however you want to look at it. The check-in begins at 7:30 to 8 a.m., so you can either do it the day of, again, every Sunday, or you can actually call, that is, I believe, 1-800-WDW-PLAY, Bob.
I think it is.
I don't know why I know that. But if you want, you could actually make that reservation when you could call the resort even. But I doubt it fills up. And it's $15 per person.
Now, Drew, you're a runner. Have you ever done this?
I have not done that. It's tough, right? Because it starts at 8 a.m. It's probably at least an hour or two just because of the way they have to set it up, and you relax after. So it's tough if you want to get to a park. I almost wish it was like a 6:30 thing. I know that sounds crazy, but you could do it while like your kids are still sleeping or getting ready in the morning, and then come back, you take your shower, you go to the park. But I would love to do it. I have not done it, but I would love to do it. The other fun recreational unique thing that they offer is what they call painting on the bayou, which is kind of exactly what you'd think it is. You unwind while painting a Disney-inspired picture. It's an instructor-led course, and it really is an afternoon class where it's welcoming all ages, really, where, beginners, experts, anywhere. And the section time, this is another weird one, right? It's 1:45 p.m. to 2 p.m., and it's a $35 fee, which is okay. But it's that weird time where, if you're probably going to be at the resort or not. And this is actually limited to, my apologies, to 12 and older. But it's just another cool little thing that a resort does. And I think they actually sit over the river, and you kind of overlook the river. I'm not sure what the paintings are. They might change. But I thought this was pretty cool. This is actually on every Wednesday. And then I'm just going to move into the most typical stuff, right? So we have movies under the stars, campfires and s'mores. There's a nice playground. The South Quarter Games Arcade, nothing special, kind of small. It's fine. It's a resort arcade. But we need to move in to one of the top 3 pools of all time at Walt Disney property, folks. The Doubloon Lagoon. It is phenomenal. It is themed. It is festive decorations. It has an alligator band. It has a 51-foot blue sea serpent water slide that is being ridden by no other than King Triton himself. It's just an amazing pool that has this enormous sea serpent that intertwines his body throughout the entire pool. So you see it come out in different areas. You have this one area that has a huge waterfall type thing with the alligator band playing, shooting water out of the instruments. It's a huge pool. They also, in 2016, introduced a brand new aquatic kids play area, which is state of the art, beautiful. And
they spared no expense with that one.
They really didn't. For in addition to a pool that has the bucket, tons of water slides, it's just very well done.
Yeah.
The weird thing that always bothered me, Bob, is they have like the jacuzzi. It's located like 100 yards away in the middle of the bushes.
It's outside of the main gates of the pool area. It's over in the corner there behind
the Mardi Gras.
Is it the bar or is it? It's the bar because on the other side is like the towel area. Yep. Yeah, so it is behind the bar. Yep.
So it's an amazing pool to say the least. It's one of those anytime you're on the boats or sometimes you're playing golf, you can see it from all over the place, and it's phenomenal. But so that is, everybody, Port Orleans French Quarter, one of my favorite resorts to stay at. The beauty of this resort is Jordana from travelmation.net can hook you up, and this resort is actually fairly cheap. I want to say, Bob, if you get on a good time, you can get it for as low as like $230-ish a night, maybe up to
$219. I think the problem becomes with this resort, specifically French Quarter, is when they offer deals, they don't usually include French Quarter because it's so small.
Yep.
So if you're looking, the free dining plan almost never gets offered at French Quarter. I never say never, obviously. Let me clarify that. It's not often that the deals get offered at French Quarter because it's such a tight resort. But yeah, I will tell you, Andrew, that I love this resort. I've stayed there 2, maybe 3 times. I'm not positive. It is a lovely resort. Perhaps my second favorite resort. Perhaps. What? Because I personally am a bigger fan of Riverside for different reasons, but I will tell you, French Quarter, fun resort. I like the size of it. It's the second best pool on property, the second best pool at this resort, because I'm a sucker for Old Man. I love Old Man Island. I love it. I love the area. When was the last time you stayed at Riverside?
Oh my God, 1994.
There you go. So there you go. So
anywho, that is, again, Port Orleans French Quarter. Let us hear what you guys think about it. And once Bob gets into it, we want to hear which one you like better. But Jordana, before we move on to Riverside, any other last-minute questions for French Quarter?
Not yet. All right. Yeah, my questions that I have, I do want to say overall, I really like the coin idea that you talked about in the beginning where the class members were giving the kids coins. I would love to see that. Yep. And then obviously, you guys know me, I have to try Mardi Gras at some point.
Oh, of course. Of course.
The name alone is worth the trip.
The name alone makes me want to...
They are.
Dining reservation there right now.
and they also give, of course, I would think this is a no-brainer. Mardi Gras beads are the law everywhere. You can grab those and wear those and have fun with them. So,
and the kids love those too.
They do. But all right, Bob, take us away with Port Orleans Riverside.
Well, we're going right down the Mississippi River, or in this case, the Sassagoula River. We are headed 400 yards downriver or so, give or take. So this, obviously, Port Orleans Riverside is themed around the antebellum South along the Mississippi River. Like we said earlier, the resort opened in 1992, and it was rethemed to Port Orleans Riverside in 2001. The resort here is divided into 2 distinct sections. You've heard us mention both of them already. The Magnolia Bend, which is this upscale 4, 2, and 3 building, 2 and 3 story plantation style mansions, and then the Alligator Bayou, which is 16 2-story rustic Cajun style buildings. Like we said, again, the room has over 2,000 rooms and is nearly 200 acres of land. Similar to what Andrew was saying about how well it's landscaped at French Quarter, Riverside has these massive oaks and magnolia trees, azalea and camellias and rose bushes everywhere. It is relaxing. It is beautiful. I will tell you, Magnolia Bend, if you want an easy comp, if you're a movie fan, think Gone with the Wind. As much as that's these beautiful white and brick buildings, and they're just these huge structures that are just straight out of a storybook, really, of everything you think of when you think of like Southern hospitality. It's really just a fantastic place. And for a resort this size, and I'm including both in this instance, I'll say it's about both sides, I just feel like it is so relaxed, and it's just so much Southern charm at these two resorts, but definitely at Riverside as well. Riverside's just a different animal compared to French Quarter in a good way. I love French Quarter too, but Riverside is just this really, just to be able to walk the grounds. And I do parks differently when I go. I know Andrew's a get up and go type guy. I am okay walking around the resort, and if you want to walk around a resort, this is the one that I would tell you to walk around. It's beautiful. It's nicely landscaped. Similar to Andrew, they got the cobblestone pathways and stuff. Lots of bridges and waterways and little estuaries. It's beautiful. A whole lot of fun. The Sassagoula River runs through the resort, obviously, and that also provides the transportation to the French Quarter and Disney Springs Marketplace and West Side, which I really think they're only now stopping at over behind that volcano, that Rainforest Cafe, which would, I guess, be considered the Marketplace boat launch. But the resort is large, I will say that. Its size is double that, at least double and a half, I believe, of the French Quarter side. So it is a big resort by itself. It's not as big as the Caribbean Beach, but that's probably its closest comp in terms of overall size. But for me, the intimacy is not lost. The charm is there, and I will tell you, this is my favorite resort on Disney property. And I will tell you that I think it's one of the best Disney resorts in Orlando, or just on property overall, period. If you wanted to stay at the Grand Floridian, but you can't otherwise afford it, then this is staying in the Magnolia Bend Mansions, and that grounds is equal to, in a different atmosphere, obviously, where it's more Victorian at Grand Floridian. It's a little bit more Southern here.
And a lot of people say that, Bob, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to say the poor man's, because you hear that phrase, right? The poor man's.
No, so let's
but it's
clean
not
up.
That.
It's a
not.
budget version. It's a budgeted version of.
It is,
of
but it's also a different style, different culture.
It is.
So it
is.
They're going after something different. But we showed co-host Tim tonight a picture. He's like, "Is that the Riverside?" And we're like, "Yeah." He's like, "Wow!" Like he didn't even realize like how amazing and kind of breathtaking is when you walk into that lobby.
It is funny, Andrew, and I think with a lot of these resorts, and specifically these two because of the way they're designed, and let's use the moderate category. There are 4 moderate resorts. Technically there's 3 if we're including these two as one. Port Orleans as a whole, the entryway, it's very unassuming. Even outside of the main lobbies, there's trees, it's kind of hidden until you walk into both of these resorts and how beautiful they really are. When you go to Coronado Springs, you have the Grand Destino Tower on the right. You see this very southwestern style buildings. It's very there. And the Caribbean Beach, I think, is somewhere in the middle of that. But I think people don't understand the hidden beauty of Port Orleans on both sides, because they're kind of hidden from when you don't drive by them and say, "Oh, that's Port Orleans." You see the sign, but you don't necessarily see the resort itself. And I think the big reveal here is when you walk into the atrium of French Quarter, or when you walk into the main rotunda lobby of Riverside, and you walk out the back doors and you see this massive river and this beautiful lush landscape and the plantation. It's a beautiful reveal at both resorts, and I think unless you've stayed there, people don't realize how beautiful they really are. I mean, that's it.
I agree. That main central hub, if it's so tall at that, it's almost a mini boardwalk in itself, right? With all the dot structures, and it is legit, like you said. It's just that natural looking landscape of you're on the river, you're on these docks, you see the river boats. Yeah. It's like, it's that warm fuzzy feeling of like, wow, like where am I?
Southern hospitality, man.
It's the Disney charm of it puts you in a place that you're not you're not in Central Florida, you know?
Yeah, you know, it is funny. It is one of those resorts that almost allows you to escape the theme parks in different ways than other resorts would, than the Contemporary would, or the Polynesian, or Grand Floridian, or, I mean, Boardwalk. I mean, literally, there's no denying that you're in Disney when you look out your window and Spaceship Earth is there, or at the Yacht and Beach Club and you look down that waterway and you see the Tower of Terror in the distance. I mean, these resorts are somewhat secluded from that, and I think that's kind of the charm of them. I think that's a lot of the charm of these two resorts. So like we said, you walk in, you know, when you first arrive at Port Orleans Riverside, you'll find yourself pulling up outside the welcoming Sasagula Steamboat Company main building. You're going to say to yourself, hey, that's probably in the backstory too, but in the interest of time, yes, it is. It is part of the backstory, but we'll get into that at another time. Entering the lobby, the idea here is that you are about to commence your Sasagula River voyage, and the check-in area to your right is themed as the departure hall for an old-style river steamboat, complete with the massive ceiling fans and decorated with the ports of call along the mighty Mississippi River. So you're walking in like you're checking in to go on your cruise, and above you on the marquees, there's all different ports along the Mississippi River that are real. It's really well done. The lobby is significantly different than French Quarter because you have to think if the resort is double the size, then things are going to be a little bit bigger here at Riverside. The lobby has this very great seating area with all these big, nicely, richly appointed chairs. There's a TV play area in the side for the kids to watch and kind of unwind while whoever is checking you in is checking in. And there's some, you know, the press penny machines, the arcades off in the back. It's a very large room, huge bay windows, like Andrew said, looking out on the Sasagula River. So it's a magnificent reveal for what is considered a moderate resort. I just think it's really nicely designed. The Bell Services desk is going to be right off to your right, but even that's a little bit themed to like a check-in area for your river cruise. So really, really fun stuff there. Like we said, just past the registration hall, we have the Medicine Show Arcade. It is actually one of the largest arcades on property. And if we go back into the rotunda, away from that, to your left, you're going to have Fulton's General Store, which for me is probably one of the best, if not the best, gift shops in a Disney resort. I mean, the stuff at the Contemporary, Buena Vista Gifts and stuff is hard to beat. It really is. But I think it's just Fulton's General Store in terms of fitting a theming of a resort is extremely well done. Again, Andrew, similar to what you said about French Quarter, the selections are tough. They do have some, I mean, but theming-wise, it's a significant upgrade to Jackson Square Gifts.
I think it's also
similar
very large, so it's similar selections, but it's large, so I think it has a little bit more.
It is big. I will say that.
They have, you know, those large animated-ish type characters, right?
Goofy and Donald and Mickey's nephews, I believe. Yep.
That you see in all of the, you know, the Disney
they're working on the steamboat. Yeah, it's good stuff.
But to see that stuff, it's just you're adding all of that. I hate to say flavor or whatever you want to call it, but it's making you kind of look into a gift shop like, wow, look at that. There's stuff to look at versus I just think the French Quarter gift shop is pretty much a straight shooter, you know?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, so that's kind of the lobby. You can walk out to the doors. You can go out onto the dock like we talked about, and there you'll see, you know, the bike rental area, the ferry dock and stuff. But really, for me overall, one of the great lobbies, you know what? One of the more understated lobbies on property and one of the more underappreciated lobbies on property. I think you get it with both of these hotels is a certain level of underappreciation for what they are. I personally really like both of the resorts for different reasons. Jordana, anything sticking out to you in terms of French Quarter versus Riverside and their respective lobbies?
Yeah, I mean, they're both just gorgeous. They're both breathtaking. And there's something that, you know, you don't, like you said, they're very underappreciated. You don't hear about oh, you have to stay at Port Orleans Riverside because those structures and it's just not one of those that you hear about right off the bat. So yeah, no, it's definitely, just looking at pictures in general, it's amazing.
Well, I hope you decide to stay at either one, because not that I care either way, but, I think you'd enjoy them. I think Sal and Guy would enjoy them as well. So
Absolutely.
We're going to get into accommodations, and before we get there, I want to give you a warning. There are 12 different room types at Port Orleans Riverside. And one minor note before we get into the accommodations. In the Alligator Bayou buildings, there are no elevators. So that is something to keep in mind. There are elevators in the Magnolia Bend rooms, just the way they were designed, but there are no elevators in Alligator Bayou rooms. So you get the standard room, obviously. They tend to face parking lots, partially obscured views, or maybe beside stairways. The standard view rooms are located all around the resort except for the preferred locations. In Riverside, it will most likely get you a room on the mansion side of the property, and that's usually buildings 80 or 85, although we can't guarantee that at press time. Then there's the garden view rooms, which we all know what a garden view room is. Again, similar. Yeah, I think so. They can be low. Yeah, I mean, you get landscaping view pretty much, I think, is what it is.
Internal to the resort. Yeah,
so you probably won't. You might actually sneak in one of the courtyard views at either side that might have a water feature or fountain in it. So this really probably a better idea for this to be a landscape view, but you will not get a parking lot view if you do get the garden view room. And obviously, garden view rooms can be located in any of the buildings except for the preferred locations. The standard view fifth sleeper. This is something they, newer side, 2018, 2019 timeframe, they added a fold-down bed. So one thing about a lot of the rooms at moderate resorts is it's 4. It's a 4 max, unless you get one of the suites at the casitas over at Coronado Springs. And I don't know about some of the pirate rooms at Caribbean Beach if they have a fifth sleeper option, but they do have the fifth sleeper option here in Port Orleans. It will be in the Alligator Bayou section, and again, most of these rooms tend to face the parking lots or have obscured views of various landscaping features. They do have a garden view fifth sleeper, same concept. Again, you'll just be guaranteed a courtyard, bayou, garden, tree view. Then there's the preferred location, which specifically are in the Alligator Bayou lodges 14, 15, 18, and 27. They are the preferred There are no preferred locations in the mansion buildings. I know it's very tough listening to a podcast, visualizing the difference between the two sides, but the mansion rooms outside of maybe Partier Place and Oak Manor are kind of out there. There's a lot of ground to cover, but there's several bus stops at this resort that we'll get into in a minute. So then, like Andrew said, there is a king bed option, which actually is a room that features one king size bed and has a maximum occupancy of 2 persons, or 3 if you happen to be in an Alligator Bayou section that does have the extra fold down bed. View and locations vary around the whole resort, but they are immaterial. You are strictly booking a king bed category, and your view is wherever they have room for you. That's where you're going based on your king bed preference. Then there are the pool view rooms, and the interesting thing about Port Orleans is there are, I think, 6 pools on property, Old Man Island, and then there are 5 quiet pools, I believe. These rooms will offer pool views, and they will not promise you that they are pool view rooms of Old Man Island. Instead, you'll be looking at Bayou rooms, Bayou buildings 16, 17, 18, 24, 25, 35, 36, 39, or those mansion buildings in 80 and 85. The Riverview rooms, very similar to what Andrew talked about in French Quarter. I don't really know that there's a ton to go over with that. They're great rooms. All will have directly river-facing rooms. The only caveat to that is if you do end up in the Magnolia Bend side, there may be grass before you see the river. They made it a point to specify that. There might be a lawn or a courtyard before you see the river, but you will have a river view room. Then they have something called the Royal Guest Rooms.
I love these.
Those are ornately decorated rooms that include really high-end bedding, fiber optic special effects in the ceiling, gold and crystal accents, unique in-room artwork featuring Tiana, Naveen, and many, many Disney princes and princesses. And all of these rooms do feature 2 queen-size beds. And that being said, there are 4 different categories of royal guest rooms. They are the standard, the garden view, the pool view, and the river view, with all of the same caveats we talked about. The only thing here is that these royal guest rooms are only available on the Magnolia Bend side, which is in Oak Manor and Partier Place. They are not available in the Alligator Bayou. I will imagine if you have a little son or daughter that is a fan of the Prince and Princess movies, great place to stay. Really cool stuff.
Really is.
Rumors are that they have or will be, I know some of the renovations that get canceled, that they have changed some of the bedding to a more traditional solid color look, but they've kept a lot of some of the other details. So they have changed them a little bit, but they've kind of done that throughout property, with the bedding being significantly less specialized to a resort and more of a general solid color depending on where you are. So those are the guest rooms very quickly. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack with that, but there's so much to do with this resort. I wanted to fly by that as quickly as we could. We are going into the dining, shopping, and bars locations now, which is really fun for me. Port Orleans Riverside offers a selection of bars and restaurants for its guests and visitors to enjoy. They vary from simple drinks or a snack by the poolside to a full table service restaurant, if that's what takes your fancy. So Fulton's General Store, obviously, we've kind of talked about it. Beautifully themed, like Andrew said. Again, the selection of goods, I think, is an overall problem with property and less directly affecting Fulton General Store. I think a lot of the Disney uniqueness per resort has kind of gone away a little bit than it used to be. You used to have resort-specific mugs. Now you have the general mugs that you get, the rapid fill mugs. They don't have the resort specific ones anymore. So there's some things that have changed. So Fulton General Store to me is a great gift shop. It's excellently themed, beautiful pin board in the back for kids to trade on, or in the front depending which way you come in the building. Nice little sundry area, quick serve drinks and snacks and candies on your way out to the bus stop, if that's your persuasion, as it were. But really well done, a good general store. There's a backstory to that, too. And again, we're not going to get into that right now. Boatwright's Dining Hall is the only sit-down eatery on Port Orleans property. It is located in Riverside. It is located right inside the main building, just past Fulton's General Store. It is themed after a wooden shipbuilding yard with vintage shipbuilding tools hanging on the walls inside the restaurant. Even your cutlery is presented to your table in a woodworker's box. Really cool themed. There's a partially built sailboat located inside the restaurant, and that is actually an authentic reproduction of a flat-bottom New Orleans Luger that sailed the Mississippi River in the 1820s. And it's really cool. It does feature food with a Cajun flavor. You get ribs and jambalaya, shrimp and grits, and actually a really quality New York sirloin are all on the menu. That's really the only thing I would eat on the menu. But really good quality food here. And again, we've talked about underappreciated a lot. I will tell you, Boatwright's Dining Hall, similar to how Andrew feels about Sebastian's over at Caribbean Beach, because they're not deluxe resorts, I feel like people forget they forget they exist. And how Andrew will defend Sebastian's, I will tell you that Boatwright's Dining Hall, they offer a prefix menu that is, maybe 7-8 different plates that you can boom, and it's a great little restaurant, and it's never busy. You can kind of walk right in. I mean, obviously, some nights, a Friday night, a Saturday night, you might get a little busier, but It is a great little restaurant, and it's a hidden gem. I would say that the key thing, if you take nothing else away from this episode tonight, that the Port Orleans complex is a hidden gem overall. From French Quarter and Riverside, the whole complex, everything you can do, it's a hidden gem of Walt Disney World. It really, really is.
I agree.
Yep. So let's get into the Riverside Mill, because this is where I excel with food, because it's a food court, and that's what I like to do. It is set inside a working cotton mill setting. There's a water wheel outside. There's a cotton mill in the middle of it. I mean, Andrew, it's got to be 3 times the size of what you get at French Quarter. The overall size. It's a massive complex.
It is.
I don't know if you really remember it, but it is huge. I was blown away at the size when we went, in December of a year and a half ago.
The problem with, again, let's go back to French Quarter, but it is small, and I think I'm sure they base all of that stuff off of how many rooms and stuff there are. But when you try to eat a French Quarter at those mint times, like breakfast or dinner, you literally can't find seats sometimes. Yeah. So it's tough. But this place, to my point, is it's massive. But it does have a massive amount of.
It has the massive drink island, though, too. Has the massive drink island, which I know you're a big fan of. So
sure.
So it's funny. They went really high tech and really excellent with the naming. Literally, the bakery is called The Bakery. They do serve seasonal cobbler, ice cream sundaes, cheesecakes, cupcakes, and a warm apple blossom. That's pretty much all day, and I will tell you the bakery is legit, and it's probably the best part of this food court. And it's usually the busiest. It's amazing. People just are at that bakery all the time. I've never not seen a line of at least 5 people in the bakery line, and it's good stuff. The grill shop, actually really good too. They have something we call a prime rib dip. So that is prime rib with a French onion au jus and steak fries. I will challenge you to find a better steak fry on property than what you get at the grill shop at Port Orleans. They are that good.
Did they put the little banana peppers in there?
I don't know. Maybe I'd have to do some research.
I think I did. I know my
research
food.
trip.
I gotta be honest, that sandwich sounds phenomenal, because
it is.
There's one thing, like, me and Guy will always say we go to Be Our Guest, and we'll have the French dip sandwich over there every time. Like, we are down for a good sandwich. So this is something that we're going to have to try.
Oh, don't you worry, because there's actually something we call the Sandwich and Salad Shop that also has some real killer sandwiches. Not that I've ever eaten them, but people tell me they're very good, and I'm going to take their word for it. So they, the grill shop has burgers and Cajun chicken sandwich and chicken tenders, and for Tim, they have the plant-based burgers here as well. The pizza shop, as it sounds, pizza, chicken Alfredo, vegetarian pasta with marinara, and that ever-important mac and cheese. And delivery is also available, and I will tell you that the pizza you get at the window is significantly greater than the pizza you get delivered to your room, speaking from experience. The carving station here, Drew, is actually very good, too. For dinner only, they got a mean flank steak. I actually got the steak, and it was delicious. They do salmon, and then on, I think it's Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, they do barbecue chicken. Yeah. And on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I don't know what they do Saturday, is a carved turkey breast. And I will tell you that every time I went, I was tempted, because the barbecue chicken looked delicious. It looked incredibly seasoned. It looked beautifully tender. It looked like a great cut of chicken. And you know how much I love my chicken. I do love a good piece of chicken. So but I never got it. So that's the reason to go back. And all those things do come with those great steak fries. I'm telling you, you will not find a better steak fry on property.
Like a good steak fry with some ketchup and malt vinegar.
No. And I will tell you, the steak fries are seasoned with like a Cajun seasoning. So there's a little cake. Oh, they are delicious. I cannot speak highly enough about the steak fries at this food court.
It's almost 10 o'clock at night, and I'm getting hungry. I don't know about you about Jordana, but
seriously, that's all I keep thinking.
So the sandwich and salad shop that we spoke about has hoagies, a pimento BLT, barbecue pork sandwich, a caprese sandwich, and Caesar and Greek salads. And this is where you're going to get the gumbo. And if the bakery always had a line, the sandwich and salad shop was a close second. I mean, people love that stuff there. And then there is the small grab-and-go cooler for some, to grab drinks or snacks or whatever, and they have the snack racks with the cereals and stuff like that. So that's that. We then kind of go back a little bit over towards Fulton's, and that's where the River Roost Lounge is. That is the main lounge and bar within the Sassagoula Steamboat Company main building. And you'll often find lively entertainment, courtesy of Yeehaw Bob Jackson, who, is just a little lounge. It's Andrew, I'll tell you this. It's almost like if you think about in the old West Side, Sosa Family Cigars, the little cigar shop, the way it was very dimly lit with the leather seating. Very similar to that. The bar on the side, there's a big fireplace, and it's a really, I hate to say elegant, but it is kind of an elegant little lounge. It's a nice little lounge. Plenty of seating. Plenty of seating, too. So really, really fun stuff. And then, you got Marty Groggs, and I've got Muddy Rivers over at my poolside bar. And that is literally that is walk up out of the pool. So it is fantastic. It's very nicely located. You can get all sorts of concoctions at these places. Like Andrew said, you've got appropriately titled beers from various regions. You've got different drinks and stuff. So both things, River Roost Lounge, Muddy Rivers, really quality. Not the cheapest places on property, I'll be honest with you, but very good. And then transportation, Andrew. I know people have been waiting with bated breath to learn all about traveling by boat on the Sassagoula.
Yes.
Yes. So
you know what's happening, Bub? Time heals everything, as you may know.
Yeah,
and
it heals all wounds.
Time is becoming greater for my poor boat experience. And believe it or not, the big boat myth of me hating it is now almost a year and a half ago. I mean, God have mercy on us. We've been even podcasting that long, but time is healing my hatred for the boats. I still hate them, but it's healing. It is healing.
Well, I'm sure that the boat companies around the world are very excited to hear that you are healing your wounds towards boats.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Yes. So that is one of the unique features, I think, of this resort. And up until a year and a half ago, when the Skyliner opened, this was one of the few resorts that had modern resorts that had multiple transportations to different parts of the property. So this is one of those that the resorts were constructed on the banks of the Disney-created Sassagoula River. That's just a gentle 2.5-mile waterway, and it's entirely man-made, so it's pretty easily controlled. But like Andrew said, when you have a nighttime boat launch, just the lush woods and the lights and everything, and past Saratoga Springs and the Treehouse Villas, it's a beautiful little boat ride.
Whimsical.
Whimsy's a good word. It's very reminiscent of just a nice cruise line. I mean, not quite to the excitement level of going down the bayou in Princess and the Frog, but you catch some fireflies once in a while. I'll tell you, it's a good time. So, obviously, there are, it's about a 20-minute boat trip down the 2.5-mile waterway. For me, it's very pleasant and relaxing. There's something about it. I don't know if it's smaller or it just seems it's open air. It's less claustrophobic than the buses get. And I'll tell you, it's not pleasant when the boats are completely full either. But it seems less sardine-y than the buses do if you're at the springs and you're coming back to these resorts. The fleet, they do have 15 boats spread out over 4 routes that are all decked out in lively, bright-colored yellow and blue livery with suitably fitting southern names. And I have the list in front of me, but I'm not going to give it to you. There's just 15 of them. Just assume that,
What a tease.
Yeah. Well, I can run through the rest. You got the Memphis Mist, the Louisiana Lady, the Sassagoula Sunset, the Bayou Princess, the Crescent City Queen, the Magnolia Blossom, the Florida Queen, the Buena Vista Queen, the Saratoga Queen, the Blossom Queen, the Jazz Lady, the Delta Lady, the Azalea Bloom, the Southern Breeze, and the Jazz Queen. Are you happy? There's the tease there. Those are all
A lot of royalty in there. A lot of royalty. Yeah, a lot of queens. They kind of just started running out of things to call them, I think. But the boats do run separate routes from various Disney Springs docks and the resorts on the river as well. They do depart from Riverside first most of the time and then go to French Quarter. I will tell you that it seems irregular to me, and I forgive me for not having the 100% accurate information, but I've seen times where you've been waiting at French Quarter and the boat just moseys on by and goes down to Riverside. Oh, devastated.
It's the worst feeling in the world. But so there is actually a way to tell which boat is which. There are flags on each of the boats when you're in Disney Springs at the landing and you're at your resort. The yellow flags and the purple flags departing from Disney Springs service Port Orleans, Riverside, and French Quarter. The Riverside resort is the yellow flag and the French Quarter is the purple flag. If you get the dual yellow and purple flag, the boat will service both resorts. Blue flags departing the landing will service Saratoga Springs, including the Treehouse Villas, and the green flags service Old Key West. So that's kind of the breakdown. There are red flags that are internal water taxis for Disney Springs itself, which is easy enough there. The river cruise linking Port Orleans and Port Orleans French Quarter commences at 10 a.m. daily and continues to 11 p.m. with the last boat back from Disney Springs departing at around 11:30. So it's pretty convenient. It runs all day. Like we said, it's not going to get you anywhere faster. It's a 20-minute boat ride every time, regardless. So it is interesting, and figure about 20 minutes between launches. So it's not efficient. It's not faster, but there is a certain charm to riding the rivers instead of being in a bus. That's all I'm going to say. So where are we now? So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. It's a lot of fun to ride the boats. I like them. Andrew seems to be coming around on them, and Jordana will love them. And Jordana will love them when she stays here or at French Quarter, wherever she decides. So when we get into the motor coach transportation, the one benefit French Quarter has is having one stop servicing 7 buildings. That's not possible at Riverside. The resort's just too damn big. So you have the South Depot, which is the main lobby area, Old Man Island, the marina, dining and shopping, and the preferred room locations of the Alligator Bayou, 14, 15, 18, and 27. I will tell you, looking at the map, that in my opinion, this is the best bet for Bayou rooms in buildings 16 and 17 as well. That's just my professional opinion, looking at the map and seeing where the buildings are. That's what I would do. Any other building in the Alligator Bayou would be serviced by the West Depot. The North Depot would service the Acadian House and Magnolia Terrace buildings of Magnolia Bend Mansion area, and the East Depot services Oak Manor and Partier Place buildings of Magnolia Bend. And keep in mind that this is where the royal guest rooms are situated. So you technically, I guess, could take the South Depot and walk to Partier Place in Oak Manor. It's a decent, it's probably a 6 or 7 minute walk easy, and that's if you're just, a couple of adults or whatever. If you have kids, it's kind of a poke. It really is. But for me, the buses aren't necessarily a problem. I don't love the idea of stopping, and I feel like it's irregular. So the South Depot isn't always the first stop coming back, which makes for problems when the buses are full. It's normally the first stop in the morning, and occasionally they will share buses with French Quarter in terms of park closings or park openings. If they need to fill up buses here and there for time constraints, then they will head over to French Quarter because it's just over a bridge and down the road. So it's a pretty easy commute for them. Recreation is plentiful at Riverside and French Quarter, but this is more of a Riverside side. So you got Yeehaw Bob Jackson. He performs a very popular piano sing-along comedy show with lots of audience participation, so leave your inhibitions at the door, folks. Bob's shows are Wednesday through Saturday from 8:30 until shortly before midnight, and he does have a short break around 10 p.m. We'd suggest getting there a bit early to grab the best seats. Bob will usually be hanging around before the show, getting to know the evening's audience, so do let him know if you're celebrating something on your honeymoon or just want to request a song. Bob has been performing at the River Roost Lounge since May of 1997, and you can check out his website for more information at yeehawbob.com. That is YEHAA Bob, BOB.com, or you can message him on Facebook. Apparently,
why don't you reach out to Bob? See if we can get him on.
Maybe we will. Maybe it'll be a surprise for later on. Maybe we will reach out to Bob and see if he wants to do the show. I know he's been on. A little
short show.
Yeah, he's been on his site doing shows from home, so I know he's active. So.
He's doing Facebook Live event. I'm watching a couple of them.
Maybe we should get him to do something like that for the Ohana. Reach out to Bob. Let's figure something out.
Somebody get Bob on the line. Not right now. Later. Okay. So the Medicine Show Arcade, which we talked about.
Massive.
It's one of the largest. It's got a selection of over 70 or 80 games, and it will gladly eat up your dollars. There's no question about that. Most of the games are generally child-friendly and non-violent, if that's your thing. Pinball machines, and I'm a pinball wizard after all, so... So here we are, folks. The crowning achievement of Disney Imagineering when it comes to pools, despite Andrew's best efforts to tell you that French Quarter is better. Old Man Island has a story, and I'm not going to give it to you. Down by the levee, just over the bridge, lies Old Man Island, full of water adventure. It's an old-fashioned swimming hole with a large, rustic water slide fashioned after an old sawmill and built into the millworks. That's the little plaque area there, and it's a fun. I'll tell you what, Andrew, if you haven't been in a while, it's a great pool. The main feature pool at Riverside is a fun swimming area with waterfalls to duck under, and a 95 linear foot curved slide to hurdle down, along with sunbeds and a pool bar for the adult swim time, which I'm sure that my co-host will attest to. There's nothing better than having a drink in the pool.
Well, when they let you drink them in the pool, they usually
that is true.
Don't let you.
They normally ask you to leave the pool, sir.
Jordana and I can vouch for that.
Yes, many times.
So, all right. So it is themed, like we said, to an old-fashioned swimming hole. The pool is at its deepest is 5 feet deep, and is almost 13,000 square feet in total area with a 125,000 gallon capacity. It is a pretty big pool. The slide's a lot of fun. It's a little bit different, I think, the layout. It's a little bit more subtle. It is kind of almost like it's a swimming hole from like Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn. I mean, I think that's my best description for you if you're familiar with those stories. It's someplace that I could see Tom and Huck hanging out at. You know, I think that's kind of what we're at. There is a small, shallow children's pool and a jacuzzi hot tub that is literally right next to the main pool. I know that's a big thing for Andrew. He doesn't want to go too far down the street to get into his hot tub. So this one is literally right next door. There is a fishing hole on Old Man Island as well, just behind the Muddy Rivers pool bar. That fishing hole is open from 7 until 1:45 in the afternoon. Last poles hired out, quote-unquote, are at 1:15. The little area is stocked with catfish, bluegill, and bass. Children under 12 must be accompanied by an adult, and all fishing at Walt Disney World property is catch and release. So, but you're welcome to take pictures to prevent those one that got away stories, because ultimately, what says Disney Vacation like holding a bluegill in a picture? Prices are $6 for individuals, and if you're like Andrew and travel with your family and you're going to do this, your best bet is paying $15 for your family, which is up to 6 guests. That fee gets you bait, rod, and a half hour on the docks. The bait, from what I'm told, is worms and hot dogs. That's what I'm told, and don't say I didn't warn you. There's a tetherball court off to the side, which seems awfully dangerous for vacationers, in my opinion, but hey, who am I? There's actually a nice little playground in the back. I will tell you that I think French Quarter has a better play area than Riverside does in that regard. Then there is a campfire area where you can make s'mores or fresh hot smos if you're Buzz Lightyear. So, and they do family sing-alongs and stuff like that. And that is also right behind Muddy Rivers, right on Old Man Island. And for some reason, it's literally right next to the playground, which seems kind of dangerous, but I assure you it isn't. There is a jogging path. It is a 1.7-mile trek if you want to go through Riverside and French Quarter. It's a little bit shorter if you just want to do like the 1-mile route along the banks of the Sassagoula. That's just at the Riverside side. So they also offer hair wrap and braiding features. That is available on the marina next to the Port Orleans dock area for the boats. That is 10 to 5. It is $2 per inch, with beads costing extra. And then there is a caricature artist right in the lobby. He or she is there from 6 to 11. Prices start at about $15 and go to about $30.
They've had that all the way back to Dixieland's days.
Yeah, it's in the same spot. It hasn't moved. It hasn't moved.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Hey, if it wasn't making money, Bub, it wouldn't be there.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that sentiment here. There are 6 pressed coin machines throughout the lobby area. I'm not going to give you the exact locations. Just go find them, you lazy bastards. Movies Under the Stars takes place over by Oak Manor and Partier Place. That is buildings 90 and 95. Screenings generally start shortly after dusk. Then there are the good old-fashioned horse and buggy rides.
The staple of Port Orleans.
Yep, where you can take a relaxing, good old-fashioned horse and carriage ride through the beautiful and serene woodlands and pathways of the Port Orleans resorts. Your private ride commences at the Port Orleans Riverside Marina dockside, just behind the lobby building, and takes you on a slow and romantic journey along the banks of the Sassagoula River to Port Orleans French Quarter, where you will turn around in its quaint New Orleans-style streets for your return journey back to Riverside. I feel like somebody just won a prize on The Price is Right or Wheel of Fortune right there.
Well, you're the one that read it like an idiot.
You can also choose to cross over Old Man Island and take a jaunt through the Riverside mansion buildings.
You have an option of what path
you do have an option. The cost is $55, including tax for the 25-minute ride, and the carriage can hold up to 4 adults or 2 adults and 3 small children. Children under the age of 18 must be accompanied by an adult.
Don't forget the tip.
You should arrive at least 15 minutes prior to your departure, and you may be canceled due to inclement weather. Then there's Andrew's favorite activity at Port Orleans. It is the Surrey bike rental.
Oh, don't
where you and 6 friends.
It might be worse than boats.
Well, see, I can get behind this. If you want to talk about how bad Surrey bikes are, I will gladly. Do you remember I want to say it was...
We were on the boardwalk.
I want to say it was the trip we took in 1999, which would have put me at 15 or so, which means you would have been 12 or 13, depending on when we went.
Yeah.
And it sucked. We were at the boardwalk. It was the worst thing in the world.
I think I remember your dad yelling at me something like, "Drew, are you pedaling?"
That sounds like something my dad. One of us got a scrape on the shin. I don't know who it was.
That was
I don't
you.
know. It might have been me. Who knows? I've had a lot of injuries today. I've
Yeah, you
chipped
probably
a
weren't
tooth.
pedaling and then it hit you in the knee.
Yeah, brutal. They're not enjoyable, but if you want to do it, it's a 30-minute rental. Enjoy yourself and 4 or 5 friends. I will tell you, despite the topography of the land looking fairly flat, I promise you that Port Orleans is anything but, and it's going to suck when you rent one of these.
I think you should sell Jordana and I. You ever see like those ones that are like the bear drinking, ones where you pedal but you get like drinks as you go?
Yeah.
Yes.
We need that for the World Showcase. Then I'm in.
Yes. Oh, I'm so down.
Well, there you go.
Idea right there.
So the Surrey bikes are available 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. year round, and prices range from $9 to $22. The $9 would be for a bicycle built for one for a few hours, or you can rent a bike all day for like $12 or $13, and then the Surrey bikes go up to $22. It is brutal. I don't enjoy it, and that's it. There's a fishing excursion opportunity. You can book a private 2-hour guided bass fishing excursion along the Sassagoula River for up to 5 people on a 21-foot Sun Tracker pontoon boat. Again, they ask you to arrive 15 minutes prior to departure time, and remember that fishing excursions are weather dependent. The fees include, get this, your boat hire, your guide, your rod, reel, tackle, bait, shiners, etc. You will also get a souvenir photo and, a 1-year membership to the Bass Anglers Sportsman Society. There is no discount for bringing your own equipment. Soft drinks are included in the price. Children under 16 must be accompanied by an adult, and prices range from $270 to $455, and do keep in mind that is split up to 5 ways. So that is just the flat rate. If there's 1 of you, if there's 2 of you, if there's 5 of you, that's the rate. I believe $270 is for like the 6:30 or 6:45 departure, and then the next departure after that mid 10 o'clock time is the 4:55, and then it's similar in the afternoon. It's interesting. I don't know that I'd ever do it, but it's, again, still strictly catch and release because we're at Disney World and they don't allow you to keep the fish. Like we said earlier, there are 5 other pools on property. All 5 locations feature a laundry location, and the machines only accept credit cards. It is $3 per load to wash and $3 per load to dry. And believe it or not, they're connected to Wi-Fi for whatever that's worth. Don't know why, but they're.
I mean, I have to jump in here, Jordana, before you make a decision. French Quarters also has a laundry room. Just wanted to say. I didn't mention it.
Thank you. That's exactly what I'm doing on vacation.
Yes.
Well, if you're going for 10 days, you are.
Yes.
I'll pack enough. I have enough suitcases.
So, there are 3 pools thrown about the Bayou area, and there are 2 pools over in Magnolia Bend. I will tell you guys, this has been fun. I love both of these resorts, and I think it really depends for me what my vacation is going to be. If I'm going to spend time at the resort and I'm going to kind of walk around in the mornings and I'm going to relax a little bit, I'm going to pick Riverside. I just think I think there's more opportunity. There's hammocks thrown about the area. You can just hang out in a hammock and eat some straw or chew some grass, whatever you want to do. I'm not judging here.
I would love to see that picture.
Of me sitting in a hammock, eating grass?
Like, what's wrong with you?
Oh, there's a lot wrong with me.
You're hilarious. You're hilarious.
But there's a lot to do with both resorts, and because you can kind of use both facilities, I don't know there's a wrong answer for where you would stay here, really, honestly. So, personally, for me, if this conversation has clearly, for me, made it even more palatable that these resorts are the hidden gem of Walt Disney World resorts, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. So before we wrap up this main topic, I got to turn it over to you, Jordana, if you have any questions or comments. And then I have to ask you the ultimate question. Where would you rather stay?
So, all right. I have a little bit of a brain teaser.
Okay.
With all the name changes that have gone since they have built the resorts,
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they're going to change them again? And if you could make a prediction, what would the new names be of the resorts?
No way. Not changing.
No, I don't think they're going to change the names at all.
All right, I'll see you in 20 years.
I will.
Okay.
And all right, and then all the names with the boats again. What if they make another boat? What's the name of the boat going to be? Since they have a million queens and they seem to have cross-named everything.
The motorboater.
I would think something Tiana related. I don't know what it would be, but I would assume that if they were, I would assume that if they're going to make another boat here, I would assume it is something Princess and the Frog related.
That's kind of where I was going.
Oh,
Okay,
I jumped the gun a little bit there.
So I broke it down, my votes, to our 5 categories we've had: lobby, accommodations, dining / shopping, transportation, and recreation. So for lobby, I think Drew sold me on French Quarter because I like the atmosphere.
I don't disagree with that. The atrium is beautiful at French Quarter. I have no problem with that. I'm okay.
Accommodations, French Quarter. I like the size of it. I like that if you have a standard room, you don't feel like you're not even part of the resort. So that's where I went there. Dining and shopping, I went Riverside because there is a sit-down restaurant. The food court, Bub, you sold me. It sounds amazing. I can't wait to try some of the sandwiches, stuff like that.
Yes, food court.
Recreation, Riverside. I really want to see Yeehaw Bob, and I want to try out this arcade. I'm not gonna lie. My husband and I on our honeymoon, we probably spent like 2 hours in the arcade at Pop Century.
That sounds very expensive.
Yeah. Probably the cheapest thing at Disney that day, but so I want to see this arcade. But French Quarter won me with transportation because of the one bus stop.
That's definitely, I wouldn't disagree with that either.
That's something I had to go for. So based on, my 5 categories, if I had to pick, I'm going to go with French Quarter this time.
And good reasons. Like we said, French Quarter is a very tight, nicely designed. It's beautiful to stay there. And I will tell you that, like I said, having stayed at the 2 and knowing what I'm doing and how I'm going to vacation, I got to go Riverside, but French Quarter, I would have to ask her, but I believe my wife may lean French Quarter. I'm not positive on that. I think she also likes the size of the resort and the one bus stop and the simplicity of that resort. Mm-hmm. And plus, if you stay at French Quarter, you can still go use the cool things at Riverside. Exactly. So that's the beauty of these resorts. You can kind of use the whole facility, and it's a beautiful facility. I really can't recommend it enough.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's only a walk away, and like you said, it might be a 10-minute walk, but you did go out to dinner there one night. Yeah. You did go use their pool. You did just walk around the grounds. Absolutely, it's not. You don't have to get a bus or anything. It's a walkable distance away. So that's such a true statement there. So everybody, we hope you really got all the information you needed or you're looking for on these 2 resorts. We'd love to hear from you. So reach out to us either on Twitter or Instagram or even the Johanna on Facebook. And
let us know if you want to hear more of the backstory, because we have that in the can ready to go if you guys want to hear it. But I think a chore.
I think a YouTube video might be the way to go on that. But Jordana, why don't you post up in the morning on a Twitter poll and Instagram poll on what people like, which resort better?
I will, absolutely.
But we're not done yet, folks. Let's head on over to the random House of Mouse.
Start knocking at the House of Mouse. We're all knocking at the House of Mouse.
Alrighty, and today we are going to talk about amphicar tours. The boathouse at Disney Springs is the only place in the world that offers the unforgettable and thrilling experience of a captain's guided tour in a vintage amphicar. And if you don't know what these are the rare cars that drive on land and then can enter into the water with just a quick splash, and then it's guiding along the water. It's about a 25-minute tour, and it goes around the landmarks of Disney Springs. So the fleet of the amphicars were purchased from private collections worldwide. There were less than 4,000 of these unique amphibious vehicles produced during the 1960s. So there's actually less than 400 that exist worldwide today.
Wow.
Yeah. So the tours actually go from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's weather permitting, obviously, and you can walk up to get the reservation from the Boathouse Boutique. The Boathouse is in Disney Springs. Again, it's only about 20 to 25 minutes. It's $125 per car, and the car can hold up to 3 to 4 people per tour. And then hours and prices are subject to change without notice, dine, shop, and launch. And if you are thinking about shopping at the boutique or eating at the Boathouse restaurant, you can actually receive a $25 reward towards an Amphicar tour with the purchase of $50 or more. So just bring your receipt into the boutique to take advantage of this special offer. And that's the Random House of Mouse.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. I mean, I get these things are super unique and rare, but $125 seems super high. I mean, especially if you have a family, but I get that. They're really cool. They're definitely cool. They're something I've always wanted to do, and I've not yet done it. But thank you, Jordana, for sharing that random excursion over at Disney Springs. So that is going to wrap up this week's episode of Walt Disney World Port Orleans Resort or Resorts. If you have any feedback, questions, or comments that I said, please email us or reach out to us on one of our social media page. You can email us at the Disney Guys Uncensored, all one word, at gmail.com. And as always, remember to reach out to Jordana Izzo, who is currently booking Disney vacations and cruises and every other type of vacation over at Travelmation. So you can reach out to her through one of our pages or Jordana Izzo at travelmation.net. And as I said, find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. If you want some super cool merchandise with our cool logos on it, head over to Redbubble. And as always, we want to thank our amazing patrons that support us and give us money through these trying times, and we really, really appreciate that. And if you want to, like Bub said, we offer tons of extra content. We'll probably post that audio file up on the history of this to our Patreons this week. And if we're feeling generous, maybe we'll share that with the public over on YouTube or somewhere. But we're always providing extra content to those guys, as well as private chats, and it's great to have that outside community as well. So for as little as $2 a month, please consider giving to us. It really helps us and goes a long way. So we hope you enjoyed the show, and thank you for listening to the Disney Guys Uncensored.
And new knowledge to all who come to this happy place.